Commander Zinner leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Well done, Tix. We're making great strides in understanding human sleep. But I want you to take it a step further. Can we figure out what dreaming does for humans? Tix perked up. Dreaming ... Yes, Commander. I've heard humans talk about these strange mind movies they experience while sleeping. They say they're sometimes delightful, sometimes terrifying, but always captivating. Vala chimed in, barely containing her enthusiasm. Oh, I've read about this. Dreams are like alternate worlds for them, where they can fly, talk to strange creatures, and even eat endless amounts of food without getting full. Humans seem to love the thrill of dreams. Commander Zinner smiled. Then, Tix, your mission is to help Max achieve the most vivid dreams possible. Let's see how this phenomenon affects their well-being that night. Tix set up his equipment in Max's room. Armed with a dream enhancer device, an alien invention crafted to stimulate imagination, he floated near Max's bed, waiting for him to fall asleep. In the quiet spaceship orbiting Earth, Commander Zinner and her crew of alien scientists had one mission: to understand humans. They'd studied Earth's languages, its food, and even Earth music. They were still confused by country music, but fascinated by rock. But nothing was more puzzling to them than human sleep. Commander Zinner, a tall, silver-skinned alien with glowing green eyes, gathered her crew for a meeting. Around the table sat her closest allies: Rixix, a big-brained thinker with neon blue skin; Vala, the sarcastic engineer who loved to question every experiment; and finally, Tix, the young, overly curious rookie who asked the weirdest questions. All right, crew, Commander Zinner began. We've observed that humans spend about a third of their lives doing ... nothing. She paused for effect. They call it ... sleep ... Tix raised a hand, immediately, eyes wide. Commander, is it like shutting down their circuits? Like ... a reboot? No, Rixix said with a sigh. It's more complex. They need it to function. If they don't get enough, they become, he hesitated, searching for the right word, cranky. That's so inefficient, Tix grumbled, noting Max's slow, zombie-like shuffle around the apartment. Commander Zinner, permission to speed up his day. Maybe push him toward more awake activities. Proceed carefully, Commander Zinner advised with a chuckle. A human over-caffeinated may be a hazard. Tix took a deep breath, crept closer, and still invisible, gave Max's elbow a very light nudge. Max blinked in surprise, looking around as if he'd felt a breeze, then took a bigger sip and seemed to come to life. Hour later, Tix followed Max into his office, where he was greeted by co-workers, yawning and exchanging what Tix could only describe as sleep complaints. One woman rubbed her eyes and muttered, "Ugh, I only got 6 hours. I'm so tired." Another guy shrugged, "I only got 4 last night. I'm practically dead." What are they doing? Tix whispered, astonished. It's like a ... sleep competition. Commander Zinner, who was listening from the ship, chuckled. Human sleep culture is one of rivalry and suffering. Apparently Max sighed and plopped down at his desk, opening his laptop and sipping his coffee with renewed focus. And with each night, Tix grew closer to unlocking the delightful, mysterious world of human sleep, one dream at a time. The adventure was just beginning, and for Tix there was no end in sight. Later that evening, as Max settled into bed, unaware of the next alien-inspired dream waiting for him, Tix prepped his equipment with a mischievous glint in his eye. This time, he had decided to explore something even more puzzling: humans' strange habit of having repetitive dreams. The crew had discovered that humans often revisited similar scenarios in their sleep, like missing a big test or showing up somewhere in pajamas by mistake. Tix was eager to see how Max would react to a similar looped dream experience. "Commander," he announced, excitedly explaining the plan, "we're going to see if Max can navigate the same dream multiple times. Maybe he'll even start to notice the pattern." Zinner nodded approvingly. "Excellent idea, Tix. Let's add just a hint of chaos. Humans love a little mystery in their dreams." After all, as Max drifted off to sleep, Tix activated the loop dream sequence. But as he worked, his eyelids began to droop again, and his head began to nod. Within moments, Max's chin dropped to his chest, and he started to doze off right at his desk. Tix was beside himself with frustration. He leaned in close and whispered in Max's ear, "You're ... falling asleep." Max's head shot up, eyes wide, looking around the office in horror. He muttered, "Weird ... die." Could have sworn someone was here. The alien crew back on the ship burst into laughter. He heard you, Vala said, barely able to contain herself. Undeterred, TX pushed on. Commander, I think I need to try something more drastic. Perhaps I could ... introduce new stimuli ... interesting approach, TX Zinner replied, amused. But be subtle at lunch, TX made his move. As Max walked outside to a nearby park, TX scanned for anything that might keep him alert and awake. Then he noticed a particularly energetic golden retriever bouncing around near a bench. Perfect, TX whispered. He reached into his pocket for his pocket translator, a small device he could use to speak with Earth animals. Holding the device up, he whispered to the dog, "Hello, Earth creature." Max, blissfully unaware of the alien scientist in his room, drifted off to sleep with a smile, thanks to the pleasant evening he'd spent watching a comedy show. TX activated the device, sending gentle pulses into Max's mind. Almost immediately, Max's eyelids began to twitch, and his breathing slowed into a deep, rhythmic pattern. "Excellent," TX whispered, jotting down notes. "The human is entering a dream state faster than usual." Back on the ship, Vala and Rix huddled over the live feed from TX's communicator. "What's happening?" Vala asked, her face pressed to the screen. "He's ... smiling in his sleep," TX reported, fascinated. "It seems he's having a ... positive dream on Max's end." He was indeed smiling, blissfully caught in a vivid dream. He was flying through a world made entirely of candy, picking marshmallow clouds and soaring over rivers of chocolate. Each bite tasted delicious, and he giggled like a kid, delighted at the surreal experience. Meanwhile, TX noticed something peculiar. "Commander, the human's heart rate has increased slightly. It seems dreams may have an impact on their physical state as well." "Oh, like you when you haven't had your energy gels," Vala grinned, elbowing Rix. Commander Zinner looked over the gathered crew with a determined expression. "We're going to run a field experiment. TX, you're going to observe a human's sleeping habits closely. You'll be our point alien for this operation." TX's eyes lit up like little stars. "Really? I get to go to Earth?" "Just remember," TX Vala smirked, "humans don't respond well to being ... towered." Hours later, TX found himself hovering over a human bed in the middle of the night, invisibly observing a subject, a young man named Max, who was fast asleep, snoring softly. TX tilted his head, perplexed. Max had been lying there for hours. "This is ridiculous," TX muttered into his communicator. "Commander, he just lies there. How is this ... productive? That's what we're trying to understand, TX." Commander Zinner replied over the earpiece, her voice crackling with excitement. Keep watching. As TX stared, Max suddenly flipped onto his side, mumbling in his sleep. TX flinched, almost dropping his observation tablet. "Why did he just ... move?" TX asked, bewildered. Vala's voice chimed in. Max found himself standing in a classroom, surrounded by students and stacks of books, with the intense feeling that he had to give a presentation. Except he hadn't prepared anything. Max muttered, glancing nervously at his empty hands. "Anyone got notes?" The students simply stared at him, unhelpful but smiling politely. As Max stumbled through his imaginary presentation, trying to remember facts he didn't know, the scene reset itself. Suddenly he was back at the classroom entrance, books in hand, feeling the same unprepared dread wash over him. "Wait," Max mumbled to himself, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. "Wasn't I just here back on the ship?" Vala and Rix were doubled over laughing. "He's caught in a human feedback loop," Vala snickered, barely able to keep her composure. "He doesn't realize it's a dream." Meanwhile, Max's bewildered expression grew with each reset. He shuffled in, set down the imaginary books, and attempted to give the presentation, only to realize he didn't know anything about the topic and was once again completely unprepared. Just as he felt himself relax and take a deep breath, the scene would restart. Zinner nodded thoughtfully. "Fascinating. Humans truly are unique. They experience excitement, fear, joy ... all while completely still." Let's keep observing. As Max continued to soar through his candy dreamscape, TX couldn't resist adding a little more excitement. With a press of a button, he sent a new pulse to the dream enhancer. In Max's dream, the candy landscape transformed. Suddenly, he was skiing down a mountain of jelly beans, racing through a rainbow of sugar-coated hills. But just then, Max's expression changed. His face scrunched up, and he muttered in his sleep, "No, don't." "Don't take the last donut," TX froze, glancing at the monitor. "Commander, it seems the human is experiencing some kind of conflict within the dream." Vala giggled. "Oh, this is where it gets really fun. Humans have these things called stress dreams where they get worried or scared over strange things," Rix added, "and they think they're real while it's happening. Imagine being terrified that someone stole your donut." "Oh, that's called dreaming. They play images in their heads while they're shut down images." TX's eyes widened. "How inefficient. Why not watch a screen like a normal species? That's the beauty of it," Rix explained. "It's like entertainment while recharging. The humans' brains create movies in their heads." Fascinated, TX continued to observe. Suddenly Max jolted awake, his eyes wide in the darkness, staring right at TX's invisible form. TX froze, worried he'd been seen. "Is there someone here?" Max muttered, looking around his room with sleepy confusion. TX's heart pounded as he whispered into his communicator, "He sensed me." "How is that possible?" "Humans sometimes sense things even when they're asleep," Rixx replied, sounding equally fascinated. TX watched as Max grumbled to himself, rubbed his eyes and flopped back onto his bed. Within minutes he was asleep again, snoring louder than ever. Back on the ship, Vala, Rixx and Commander Zinner were all chuckling over the communicator. "This species is strange," TX said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and exasperation. "Would you like to meet a new friend?" The dog tilted its head, looking at TX with big, eager eyes. TX, still invisible, pointed toward Max and whispered, "Go say hi." The dog, full of excitement, charged toward Max, barking and wagging its tail like a propeller. Max barely had time to react as the dog bounded up to him, leaping and licking his face, practically knocking him over. "Whoa, whoa, whoa." "Okay, buddy, calm down," Max laughed, reaching down to pet the overjoyed dog. TX watched with satisfaction as Max seemed instantly more energized. "Commander, the Earth creature has done its job. The human is ... awake." Vala giggled over the earpiece. "Good work, TX. I think we may have discovered an effective waking tool. Try using the animal stimuli at key moments." As Max resumed his day, TX continued experimenting with different techniques to keep him alert, causing little gusts of wind to flutter papers off his desk, nudging his computer screen so it flickered, and even sending a text message to Max's phone with the words "wake up" in all caps. Max simply muttered, "Ugh, spam." But as the day wore on, TX's methods had a strange effect. "All right," TX Zinner said, chuckling, "I think he's suffered enough. Give him a little relief, perhaps switch the dream setting." TX grinned and tapped a button. The classroom scene melted away, and Max found himself standing on the edge of a strange, bustling marketplace with stalls that seemed to go on forever. Each one was piled high with bizarre alien items, brightly glowing stones, floating fruit, and shimmering liquid contained in delicate orbs. Max's eyes widened in awe as he wandered, marveling at the alien wonders before him. The crew watched closely as Max wandered around the marketplace, utterly fascinated by the strange items and trying to guess what each one might do. "Are these space apples?" Max asked a vendor, holding up a floating neon green fruit that wobbled like gelatin. The vendor, who looked suspiciously like a half-hamster, half-hawk hybrid, clicked his beak and replied close, "It's a quabble fruit. Take a bite and you'll feel lighter than air." Max hesitated for a moment before taking a small bite. As he did, he felt a strange sensation in his stomach. Suddenly, his feet were no longer on the ground. Max, instead of staying awake, grew more tired, yawning almost every minute, with dark circles under his eyes deepening. By late afternoon, he was practically leaning against his cubicle wall, ready to collapse. "It's no use," TX finally admitted, defeated. "The human is determined to stay tired no matter what I do. That's human nature," TX Rix said wisely. "They push themselves to exhaustion, then complain about it." Back on the ship, Commander Zinner smiled. "TX, we may never fully understand human sleep, but at least you've discovered something valuable about their resilience ... and their need for companionship." Just as TX was preparing to leave Max to his rest, he noticed his human subject looking out his office window, staring at the sunset with a peaceful expression. As the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Max closed his eyes, sighed, and said softly to himself, "There's nothing like a good night's sleep after a long day." TX blinked, feeling an unexpected warmth in his chest. Maybe humans didn't just sleep because they had to, maybe somehow it gave them a sense of calm and peace. "Stay there," Txina commanded. "I want you to try something. Gently ... tap him, tack him." Tx's voice was a whisper of horror. "That's crazy, do it," Zina replied with a hint of mischief in her tone. Nervously, Tx leaned forward, invisible, and reached out a glowing blue finger to tap Max's shoulder. The human stirred, muttering, "Not now, Mum," before turning and pulling the blankets over his head. Tx shot back, almost tripping over his own feet. He's ... He's completely unaware. "What kind of defense mechanism is that? Humans call it deep sleep," Rix said knowingly. "It's like they shut off entirely." Tx's eyes glimmered. "You know what? I don't believe they need this sleep at all. What if we tested what happens if we keep him awake?" "Oh ho," Vala laughed, clapping her hands. "Now you're thinking like a scientist, Tx." The experiment continued through the night. Every hour, Tx would nudge, poke, or jostle Max in some way, interrupting his sleep. By morning, Max looked like a zombie, yawning and muttering, "Why do I feel so ... horrible?" "Fascinating," Tx whispered into his communicator, watching Max stumble through his morning routine. Tx, curious to test this concept, slightly adjusted the dream enhancer, making the situation a little more dramatic. In the dream, Max found himself facing a giant donut monster, reaching out with jelly-filled claws, demanding the last sprinkle-covered donut. "No, I'll never give it up," Max mumbled, gripping his pillow like it was his precious donut. He tossed and turned, his face a mixture of terror and determination. On the ship, the crew was in hysterics, watching the live feed of Max's donut dilemma. Commander Zina couldn't contain her laughter. Humans truly have the most peculiar minds. After a few minutes, Tx decided to bring the dream back to a lighter tone. He adjusted the enhancer, and Max's dream shifted to a calm beach scene. Waves lapped gently at the shore, and Max lay in a hammock under a warm sun, sipping an endless glass of lemonade. As Max's breathing slowed, his body relaxed completely, and a peaceful smile appeared on his face once more. Tx whispered into his communicator, "Commander, it seems dreams, whether pleasant or stressful, have a profound effect on the human's mood and energy levels." He hovered a few inches above the stall, and the vendor clapped happily. Back on the ship, Rixx was laughing. "Imagine, floating because of a piece of fruit. Tx, humans might think their dreams are random, but little do they know." Max floated over to the next stall, where a tall alien with 6 eyes and shimmering blue skin offered him a small vial of sparkling liquid. "This, sir, is called a star drop," the vendor explained. "One sip, and you'll have the courage to face your greatest fears." Max looked at the vial and chuckled nervously. "I think I'll save this for my next big presentation." As he turned to leave, though, he found himself standing back in the exact same spot he'd started, staring at the endless rows of stalls as if he'd never left. Max blinked in confusion, scratching his head. When Max finally woke up the next morning, he stretched, feeling incredibly refreshed yet slightly puzzled. "Man, I had the weirdest dream last night," he murmured. "First I was flying through Candyland, then there was this ... this donut monster. And then, just like that, I was on a beach," he chuckled, shaking his head. Maybe I should lay off the late-night snacks. As Max went about his day, he couldn't stop smiling, the funny dream replaying in his mind and lifting his spirits. Tx observed his human with satisfaction, delighted that the experiment had such a positive effect. Vala's voice crackled over Tx's earpiece, excitement in her tone. "This has been a huge breakthrough, Tx. It seems humans rely on dreams not just for rest, but for ... entertainment. Their minds crave these strange adventures." Rix chimed in. "It's like their own version of virtual reality. And they get it for free every night." Commander Zina nodded thoughtfully. "Our findings are significant. Tx, keep experimenting. Let's see if we can guide him toward even more creative and meaningful dreams. We may uncover more about how these mind movies affect their health and happiness." As he floated back toward the ship, Tx made a final note in his observation log. Conclusion: humans don't just need sleep. They ... enjoy it. Perhaps it's not a weakness after all, but a kind of strength. And so, with new determination, Tx prepared for the next day of baffling but endlessly amusing research on human sleep, convinced now more than ever that someday he might just crack the mystery of the human heart and mind. Back on the ship, TIEX eagerly shared his findings about human sleep enjoyment, stirring excitement among the other crew members. Commander Zinner was particularly intrigued. So Zinner mused, "It's possible that humans like sleep as much as they need it." "Exactly," TX said, unable to hide his enthusiasm. "It's like they're recharging ... and unwinding at the same time. I think it's a way for them to process everything they've experienced during the day." Vala gasped, wide-eyed. "It's like they have a built-in entertainment system," while their unconscious Commander Zinner tilted her head thoughtfully. "This changes things, TX. We've been analyzing sleep as a weakness, but perhaps it's their FOMO adaptation. The more I prevented his sleep, the worse he looked. See," TX Rick said, "humans truly need this strange process, and if they don't get it, they can barely function," Vala added. "It's like they're powerless without it." Commander Zinner's voice was calm but intrigued. "We'll have to observe longer, perhaps on multiple humans. Imagine an entire planet that would lose its ability to function if deprived of ... sleep." TIEX nodded eagerly. He was now deeply invested in cracking the mystery of sleep. Perhaps he could find a human who would willingly explain it to him. As Max stumbled through his morning in a groggy haze, TX followed closely, invisible and brimming with excitement. Every yawn, every muttered complaint, every bleary-eyed look in the mirror only fueled TX's theory sleep was like a secret human weakness. "This was groundbreaking, Commander," TX whispered into his communicator. "The human appears unable to function without proper sleep. This makes them vulnerable, like a spaceship with no fuel back on the ship." Commander Zinner nodded thoughtfully. Didn't I just leave?" he mumbled. TX leaned in closer, intrigued by how quickly Max was becoming aware of the strange loop. "Commander," he whispered excitedly, "I think he's catching on to the repetition. Let's see how he reacts if we add a few unusual characters." Suddenly, a lively parade of unusual creatures appeared, led by a marching band of aliens playing instruments that made sounds like electric sparkles and soft chimes. TX grinned, thrilled at the new directive. That night, he prepared a series of themes to introduce into Max's dreams, one where he was a heroic astronaut, another where he was a famous chef creating the world's biggest pizza, and one where he befriended a small alien creature, TX's personal favorite. As the crew settled in for another night of research, one thing was clear: there was no end to the delightful mysteries of human sleep, and TX, now more than ever, was determined to uncover every single one. The next evening, TX and his team prepared for their most ambitious experiment yet. They wanted to see if they could influence Max's dreams in a way that might reveal even more about his mind, and maybe even leave him waking up with a new sense of wonder. This time, TX had cooked up a plan he called the multi-dream adventure, where Max would move from one vivid dream setting to another, like scenes in a play. "Tonight, Max will be a hero in his own world of dreams," TX whispered, adjusting his equipment. "Let's start with something simple, perhaps a forest with talking animals." "Excellent observations, TIEX. But let's take this a step further. Follow him throughout his day. Note any strange behaviors." TIEX's eyes gleamed with purpose. As Max stumbled out of his apartment and onto the busy street, TX followed, meticulously documenting every yawn, every stumble, and every groggy complaint Max muttered about his lack of sleep. At a bustling coffee shop, Max ordered a large coffee, practically hugging it when the barista handed it over. He took a sip, and his whole demeanor shifted. His eyes widened, his shoulders relaxed, and a little smile crept onto his face. What is this?" TX whispered, observing the human's sudden shift in energy. "It's a stimulant called coffee," Vala explained through the earpiece, her voice laced with amusement. "Humans drink it to counteract their tiredness. It's like ... fuel for their brains." "A temporary fix," Commander Zinner mused. "So they use beverages to supplement their lack of sleep." "Yes," Rix chuckled. "They're quite clever in a desperate sort of way." As Max moved through his day, TIEX continued his observations, taking note of every coffee sip, every yawn, and every time Max's eyelids drooped in the middle of a meeting. "Should I continue the experiment?" Commander TIEX asked. Zinner smiled. "Absolutely. But this time, let's see what happens if you encourage more sleep rather than keeping him awake." The next morning, TX began his experiment by adjusting the lights in Max's apartment. He dimmed the room slightly to create a cozy, warm glow. When Max finally stumbled into the kitchen, he was greeted by the smell of freshly brewed coffee, thanks to TX's remote-controlled coffee maker that he'd activated with a tiny gadget from the ship. Max sniffed the air, smiling sleepily. Mem. How did I manage that? He poured himself a cup, savoring it, and sank onto his couch, completely unaware that TX was hovering nearby, taking notes. Phase 1, the human appears to be ... relaxed, TX whispered into his communicator. Perhaps this is key to more restful sleep back on the ship. Rix chimed in, clearly entertained. Try using something soothing next. Humans respond well to calming noises like rain nodding. TX pulled out a small device that emitted a gentle rain sound. It filled the room with a soft, rhythmic patter, and Max's eyes began to droop. Behind them was a grand float, carrying none other than the fox from Max's previous dream, wearing an extravagant cape and a crown made of glowing flowers. Max the fox shouted, waving eagerly. It's been ages, old friend. Join us on the float. Max's jaw dropped as he stumbled forward, climbing onto the float, while the fox handed him a flag adorned with strange symbols. Together, they led the parade through the marketplace as Max beamed and waved to the cheering crowd. Back on the ship, Zinner was fascinated. TX, I think we may have given the human too many wild ideas. It seems that he's not confused anymore, he's simply enjoying the strange events. Vala nodded, laughing. Humans are so wonderfully resilient. They're endlessly curious. Even if they're lost, the fox turned to Max, leaning in close as if sharing a secret. Do you ever wonder if this is all a dream? Max paused, looking around at the endless stalls, the shimmering creatures, and the strange fruit in his hand. Actually, now that you mention it, maybe he laughed, as if shaking off the thought. But if it is a dream, it's one of the best I've had. As Max dozed off, TX set the scene. In Max's dream, he found himself standing in a lush, sun-dappled forest surrounded by curious woodland creatures. A fox in a tiny red hat approached him. Welcome, Max said the fox in a cheery voice. We need your help finding the golden acorn. Only a true hero like you can do it. He thrilled to be a true hero, grinned from ear to ear. All right, little buddy, lead the way. TX's eyes widened, watching Max's heart rate rise with excitement. Commander, it seems the human is responding very well to being called a hero. Commander Zinner nodded, smiling. Humans love feeling important. Try adding a bit of adventure, TX, perhaps some kind of daring chase. In the dream, Max was now sprinting through the forest, being pursued by a mischievous squirrel who wanted the golden acorn for himself. The animals cheered him on, shouting things like, "You're our only hope, Max." And you can do it. Max was laughing and running as fast as he could, dodging trees and leaping over logs. TX noted his expressions, fascinated. Commander, it appears the human enjoys a sense of urgency. It seems to make the dream feel more alive to him. By early afternoon, TX had gathered all the evidence he needed. It seems humans are constantly battling their need for sleep, Commander TX reported. It's like they're fighting a daily battle against ... their own bodies. Commander Zinner laughed. Oh, TX, it sounds exhausting just listening to it. By evening, TX was back in Max's apartment, ready for round 2 of the sleep experiment. But as Max collapsed onto his couch, TX noticed something odd. Max was staring at a glowing screen. Scrolling through images and videos, his heavy eyelids drooped, but he forced himself to keep scrolling. What is he doing? TX asked, perplexed. That's called doom scrolling. Vala explained with a chuckle. Humans often avoid sleep by watching endless videos or reading news, but ... why avoid sleep if they need it so badly? TX asked, utterly baffled. That's the mystery. Rixx replied. Humans both need sleep and seem to ... resist it. Curiosity getting the best of him, TX leaned forward and whispered directly into Max's ear, still invisible. Why ... do you resist ... your sleep? Max frowned, blinking in confusion. He took a deep breath and let out a satisfied sigh. Sigh. Ah. This is perfect, Max mumbled to himself. Just a few minutes of relaxation, and I'll be ready for the day. But TX wasn't done yet. He'd prepared what he thought was the ultimate relaxation aid, a blanket, warmed to just the right temperature. Floating over, TX draped it around Max's shoulders. Max's eyes widened in surprise, but instead of questioning it, he snuggled deeper into the blanket and yawned. Maybe ... I could squeeze in a short nap, he mumbled, eyes closing as he sank into the couch cushions. From his hidden perch, TX watched with satisfaction as Max drifted off into a blissful nap, his breathing slow and even. TX relayed his observations to Commander Zinner. Commander, the human IS ... AT piece. He's not fighting sleep. He's accepting it willingly. Fascinating, Zinner replied. TX, let's try observing his nap cycle, see how long he rests and what effect it has. An hour passed, then 2. Max snoozed soundly, completely relaxed. Just as TX was preparing to record his observations, Max jolted awake, glancing at the clock with a horrified expression. As Max's laughter echoed through the dreamscape, TX couldn't help but smile. Humans might need sleep to recharge, but through their dreams they seem to touch entire worlds beyond their own. Commander. TX reported, satisfied. I believe the human need for sleep isn't just physical. It's their way of exploring their own minds, one dream at a time. With a proud grin, Commander Zinner nodded. Well done, TX. But don't stop just yet. Let's keep sending him on more adventures. Who knows what other discoveries we might make? And so, as Max's dream journey continued, TX eagerly plotted his next set of experiments, more curious than ever about the limitless imagination within a sleeping human mind. For both Max and the aliens, the adventure had only just begun. As dawn approached, TX prepared to end Max's dream journey with a final, unforgettable twist. With a few careful adjustments, he conjured a grand finale. Max found himself in a gleaming spaceship cockpit, surrounded by the alien crew he'd unknowingly befriended in his dreams. Vala chimed in, barely able to contain her laughter. Imagine. All this energy, all while lying completely still in bed once Max had successfully rescued the golden acorn. TX shifted the scene to a completely different setting. Max was now standing in front of a towering castle with clouds swirling around its turrets. The fox from earlier was now in a little wizard robe, urging him forward. This way, Sir Max the fox said, waving a tiny staff. The princess awaits your bravery. Max's chest puffed up as he accepted his new title with pride. Lead on, Wizard Fox. As Max charged through the castle's grand hallways, TX added magical elements to the scene, a glow in the walls, portraits that winked at him as he passed, and grand staircases that seemed to stretch on forever. Let's add a dragon, Rixek suggested with a smirk. TX hesitated, but then added a friendly dragon just outside the castle. In the dream, Max rode on the dragon's back, soaring over mountains and rivers, laughing with joy. The sheer thrill made him feel weightless, invincible, like he could conquer anything. But the dragon ride didn't last long. He shook his head, mumbling, must be the coffee ... Can't be hearing voices now, but TX persisted, his whisper growing more insistent. Why do you deny yourself sleep? Human this time. Max sat up with a start, looking around his empty apartment. Who's there? TX flinched, stepping back, heart pounding. Commander, he almost ... heard me. Careful, TX Zinner warned, though she sounded amused. Perhaps you'll get more answers if you observe without spooking the human. As Max prepared for bed, TX was more determined than ever to understand. He watched Max brush his teeth, pull on pajamas, and finally flop onto his bed, letting out a heavy sigh of relief. Within minutes, Max was out cold, snoring softly. TX hovered over him, muttering into his communicator, Commander, he's finally asleep. I believe this is his most vulnerable state, but he's also recharging, Rixek reminded him. This sleep is essential for humans to function at full capacity. Vala chuckled. If he didn't get his sleep, he'd be stumbling around like a malfunctioning robot tomorrow. As TX hovered, watching Max's breathing slow and his face relax, he felt a strange sense of respect for humans. Oh no, I overslept, he yelped, scrambling up in a panic. I've got to get to work, he rushed around, throwing on clothes and grabbing his things, grumbling under his breath. Why did I let myself nap? That's the last time I take a nap in the morning. TX frowned, puzzled. But Commander, he seemed so content. Why is he upset now? Vala chuckled. Humans have something called responsibilities, TX. They're always on a schedule. Naps are considered a luxury. TX asked, jotting it down. Exactly, Rixek replied. Humans would love to nap whenever they want, but they rarely get the chance. Determined to explore this concept, TX decided to observe Max throughout his workday, using his new hypothesis: humans loved sleep. but they sacrificed it for other obligations. At work, Max fought off sleepiness with multiple cups of coffee, yawning his way through meetings and slumping over his desk. When lunchtime came, Max wandered into a nearby park, plopped onto a bench, and closed his eyes, hoping for just a few minutes of rest. TX watched him, fascinated, and decided to make his environment as nap-friendly as possible. Max the Fox in royal attire announced dramatically, "We have one last mission for you, wake up. And remember nothing of what you've seen." Max blinked, still in awe. "Wait, I knew this felt a bit unreal, but why can't I remember?" TX, smirking from behind the control panel, leaned over. "Let's just say, human sleep is the greatest mystery of all." In a flash, Max felt himself being gently pulled from the dream world. As he opened his eyes to his familiar room, he chuckled, brushing off a lingering feeling of wonder. "What a wild dream," he murmured. Back on the ship, the aliens exchanged a proud glance. TX sighed, satisfied. "Well, team, I think we've learned enough. Until tomorrow night." And so, as Max drifted back to sleep, he unknowingly awaited the next adventure, still a mystery to both him and his alien friends. He activated the gentle rain sounds again and sent a breeze through the park, rustling the leaves. But before Max could fully relax, his phone beeped. He snapped awake, looking at the screen with a sigh. "Oh, right, emails," he muttered, grabbing his phone and reading through them with a groan. "Emails," TX repeated in confusion. "They're ... digital messages humans have to answer," Vala explained. Max's face softened, and he put his phone down with a sigh. "Guess my nap will have to wait," he muttered. This gave TX an idea. "Commander, what if we explore how humans sleep better without their digital messages? Maybe we could ... eliminate distractions." Zinna chuckled. "That's ambitious, TX." But proceed later that evening, TX made his grand move. He tampered with Max's phone settings, adjusting them so that notifications were silenced, ensuring a night of peaceful, undisturbed rest. As Max crawled into bed, blissfully unaware of TX's interference, he drifted off faster than ever before, sleeping deeply and soundly. The next morning, Max woke up feeling unusually refreshed. He stretched, blinking in surprise as he checked the time. They were fragile, certainly, and bound to this bizarre ritual of sleep, but at the same time, there was something almost ... admirable about it. Despite their need for sleep, humans had built entire civilizations, invented technology, and explored their world. Suddenly Max shifted, mumbling in his sleep. "No, don't ... take the last donut." TX blinked, wide-eyed, and leaned in. "Commander, he's speaking in his sleep. He's talking about ... donut." Commander Zinna gasped. "Is it a warning?" "A threat? No, it's ... more like a demand," TX replied, watching in fascination as Max's face contorted in frustration. "He's dreaming about food. Humans truly are peculiar," Vala said, laughing. "They think of food even in their most vulnerable state," Rixek sighed. "It's almost ... endearing." Commander Zinna's voice held a smile as she spoke. "Yes, TX. I think you'll need to continue your research. Maybe tomorrow, observe a human who has slept well and see how they compare. We may never fully understand why humans insist on this strange ritual called sleep ... but perhaps we'll grow fond of their little quirks." TX grinned. "With pleasure, Commander." TX had another shift in mind. The scene melted into a bright cityscape, where Max found himself dressed in a shiny superhero suit, complete with a mask and cape. People cheered as he landed from a high jump, his fists clenched like a true hero. Yes, this is it," Max muttered in his sleep, feeling the thrill of superpowers and the weight of responsibility as he saved civilians from imaginary villains. Every punch and leap felt real. Commander Zinna watched, amazed. He's practically living multiple lifetimes in just one night. No wonder humans need sleep. They're like actors in their own private plays. After the superhero scene, TX let the dream mellow out. He introduced a calm, beachside setting, where Max now sat under an umbrella, sipping a coconut drink. As he rested on a beach chair, the same fox from the forest now lounged beside him in sunglasses. "Sir Max," the fox said, raising his own coconut drink. "You've earned this relaxation." Max sighed contentedly, letting the sounds of the ocean wash over him. This is the life," he murmured in his sleep. As dawn approached, TX decided to wind down the multi-dream adventure experiment. gradually letting Max's mind settle into deeper, simpler rest. He quietly turned off the dream enhancer, observing Max's relaxed expression with satisfaction. The next morning, Max woke up feeling like he'd been on an epic adventure. That was unreal, he whispered, still feeling the lingering thrill of his dream. As he got ready, he couldn't stop thinking about the talking fox, the golden acorn, the dragon, and his stint as a superhero. On the ship, TX reported his findings with pride. "Commander, I believe dreams may be more important to humans than we first realized. They seem to need these adventures, even if they're only happening in their minds." Commander Zinner nodded. "It's fascinating. We may be witnessing the very fabric of human creativity in action." "Excellent work, TX," but TX was already deep in thought, ready to design even more elaborate dream adventures for the coming nights. Who knew? The next dream might have Max scaling alien planets or dancing with moonlight creatures. "I'm just getting started," and as he watched Max roll over and mutter something about extra cheese on the pizza, TX realized that the mystery of human sleep was far from solved, but it was certainly one of the most entertaining missions he'd ever been on. The next morning, TX was back on duty, ready to observe Max with fresh eyes and, well, his full 4 arms. He wasn't taking any chances. As Max groggily started his day, TX followed along, recording every detail, eager to find new patterns. Max seemed a little better rested than yesterday, but he still looked like he could do with another few hours in bed. He padded to his kitchen, poured himself an oversized mug of coffee, and stared blankly out the window as he took his first sip. Just then, Rixx chimed in over TX's earpiece, sounding curious. "So TX, what's he doing now?" "He's just standing, drinking that coffee liquid," TX muttered, scribbling in his notebook. "It's like he's charging up, but..." Slower Vala piped in, clearly amused. "Coffee's like human rocket fuel, but with a lag time. They need multiple cups to reach full speed. I slept the whole night without waking up," he marveled. "And no late-night work emails either. This is amazing," TX observed with glee, whispering into his communicator. "Phase 2 uninterrupted sleep seems to increase human energy and happiness." Commander Zinner laughed. "A wonderful discovery, TX. It seems sleep is indeed a powerful force for humans. Perhaps even ... Dital." Just then, Max grabbed his phone, realizing something was off. No notifications. "I usually get a bunch during the night." Realizing his experiment was about to be discovered, TX quickly restored Max's phone settings, slipping away as his human subject puzzled over the strange but restful night he'd just enjoyed. And as TX returned to the ship, a triumphant smile spread across his face. There was still so much more to learn about humans and their sleep habits, but with every experiment, he was coming closer to understanding the strange, delightful rhythm of human life. Back on the ship, TX eagerly reviewed his latest notes with the crew. The experiment had been a huge success. Max had achieved a night of deep, uninterrupted sleep and had woken up happier and more energetic than ever before.